You are tuned in to the Creative Frequency. Come with us as we explore the creative process with artists from all areas of the creative spectrum. The Creative Frequency starts now. Hi, everybody. It's Kent Tarbox here, and welcome back to the Creative Frequency, coming to you from Studio 20 in the Jones Building, downtown Findlay, Ohio. I've got a guest today in the studio, and that guest today with us is Spencer Cunningham. Spencer, welcome, and tell everybody about yourself.
Yeah. Well, I was born at a very early age. We'll start at the other end. Just recently retired from full-time teaching at the University of Findlay
Okay.
in the art department, photography, and some 2D foundations, but in part-time now teaching the film photography class. So we still have a really nice dark room there at the University of Findlay and get a full class of students, and then a class in folk, blues, and roots music, which I proposed to the honors program. So
Okay.
taught one semester of that, which is a lot of fun.
Okay, great. I want people to understand that Spencer is a multifaceted individual, if you haven't picked up on this, because he's been an instructor, because I've actually had the privilege of speaking in his class. Photography, I know about the work, and I know you're a musician as well. I believe you play banjo, guitar.
I can play mandolin, and I'm working on the dobro more too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. See, it never ends, folks. It never ends. It's never he can play four things. I can play an iPod. So that's kind of where we're at musically together. Looking at your questionnaire here, I send out a questionnaire to everyone and they send it back. So you're saying here for like 35 years, you've been photographing acoustic and traditional musicians at festivals and jams and concerts and that. Do you think, given the fact that you perform at these festivals, you've played on stage and that, does that give you a little different perspective on what you're looking to photograph as opposed to, say, me, who's not a musician? Do you think there's an insight or you have a little edge because you're a musician?
Well, you know the music, so you can anticipate, I think, a little bit. And you being a photographer,
Right.
and I've seen a lot of your sports photography, which is
Right.
really terrific.
Thank you.
That's why I invited you into class.
Thank you.
So you anticipate, but I'm interested in kind of the same thing. It's that peak moment of performing. Music is about feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so in any performer and audience, you have these just moments where the music grabs you, touches you. That's what I kind of look for a lot.
Okay.
In that kind of photography, yeah.
Can you look through some of your images, say from a particular show or something, and can you identify the moment with the emotion? Does that come back to you and say, I remember getting that shot because of this? Or does it just happen?
Let me show you one.
Okay.
I brought a ridiculous amount of photographs.
Okay. Hey, we're going to do something here a little different. This is going to be hold it up in front and we're going to do show and tell.
This one.
Okay.
There we go. Okay.
There we go.
So folk music aficionados will recognize this guy.
Pete Seeger?
Pete Seeger.
Okay.
And I happened to do some work for the Farm Labor Organizing Committee.
Okay.
Pete Seeger came to Toledo for a fundraiser, and so I was the official photographer, so I had access.
Right.
Access can be huge, as you know.
Oh, of course. Of course.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is, I think, a peak moment where Pete is, he's looking up. And
right.
It's a black and white photograph, hand-colored.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna give a little disclosure here. I'm kind of familiar with Pete Seeger right now because I've watched A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And which was actually a good movie, folks. If you haven't seen it, while Spencer's pulling up a few other things, I highly suggest you give it a look.
You wouldn't recognize this person probably. Christine Lavin.
Okay.
This was at Summer Folk up in Owen Sound, Canada, Ontario. But the expression on her face, right?
Right.
And she's funny. She's real funny.
Okay.
So that's part of her shtick.
Okay.
This is a friend. And he said, hey, I need some photographs for promotion. Well, he found this church.
Right.
And he said, I want to be photographed there.
Okay.
So the End Time House of Prayer.
All right.
With his electric guitar.
Yeah. I find that interesting too. Real quick, because I like the way it's cropped, even though some people would say you committed the sin of cutting off the top of it. I like that because it draws you to the artist, and I like the placement of the guitar. I really like that.
Good, yeah. This is more of a record shot. I mean,
Sure.
but, so down in Kentucky, revered Kentucky fiddler every year. Then you have dancing, you little kids,
Oh, sure.
playing. You can't not dance, or at least you can't sit still with this kind of music
Right.
usually. So again, just another
I like that. Yeah.
sort of intense moment. So that's kind of what I look for.
And
Music.
anyone who has done this, I think we have to, little disclosure here, that was one out of how many frames?
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah.
And some of the great photographs. I just watched this about 2 weeks ago. Elliot Erwitt and Eugene Smith and all these guys. They showed you the proof sheet.
Right.
Yeah, whole roll.
Right.
But there's this one photograph
It
which
jumps out.
yeah,
And that's
it's
because
just
I know we had conversation in your class. We talked about machine gun, spray and pray and taking
right.
1,000 frames and we talk about shooting with purpose and stuff. And again, yes, we love getting those shots. We do have to get more than one. Sometimes we get lucky,
Yeah.
but it is all part of this creative process that
Oh yeah.
and if you've listened to this or anything, or you know anything about any type of art or any type of creative, the more you do, like anything else, the luckier you
The
get,
luckier you get. Yeah.
the more practice you get. So again, we always encourage people, go out and do it. I want to talk to you here. You said point number 2, I want you to push your series River Symmetries, and you've got to think of a more esoteric title. You laughed about that. Tell us about that.
Yeah.
And show us.
Yeah. So this is the most recent series I'm doing.
Now, for those of you that just listen on Spotify and Apple Podcast, you're going to have to maybe come out here to the YouTube channel to take a look.
See if we can get this one.
Wow.
Kind of big, but that's okay.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I've seen look at this image and others like this, they don't know what this is.
Right.
They have no idea how this was made.
Well, and I've got a pretty good idea because I think I know the story behind it.
Yeah. So,
But
let me see here. Let me help everybody out here.
and everybody sees it.
And that should give you a huge clue, right?
Right. Just the
Little
reflections.
color. So the idea was I sold my canoe because over the years it got a little too heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Bought a kayak and discovered the Blanchard River,
Okay.
which is just this great river for kayaking, I think. It's just the right size.
Right.
And there's all kinds of stuff in this river. Roots.
Right.
There are man-made leavings in this river. And so I started to see this.
I'm interested in just watching him go through his stash over here. So basically, you're taking the horizontal and flipping it vertical.
Just flipping it vertical.
Right.
But how our viewpoint on just changes things.
Right.
Especially with the stuff that is in here and then just getting a reflection. No Photoshop.
Right.
One shot, one
Right.
capture. About the only thing I do in terms of editing is I'll try to even out the brightness.
Right.
Reflections are about a stop, typically a stop
Right.
darker than the actual thing. So yeah.
I think it's interesting too, and it's a commentary on society today, especially society in the arts, and our place in it is we have to mention no Photoshop. It's not AI. It's not Photoshopped. It's not. And I think what's interesting too about the last image you just showed, if you didn't know that was the Blanchard River, and if people have seen the Blanchard River, it's not the most exciting looking river in the world. That looks like something you'd see in Louisiana in a swamp or something like that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
because a lot of times, folks, if you're not familiar with Northwest Ohio, the Blanchard is just this muddy kind of slow flowing. It's in the middle of nowhere to some people, but that's what you see. And that's your perspective. We don't see it from the river.
Yeah.
We see it from the road driving by.
It clears up, which is that's when you get the reflections. Breeze, because breeze creates ripples. So it's this kind of search,
Right.
for
Right. I like that. I know it's similar, and people are familiar with what I do with my roadkill, where I just drive around and I take pictures from my truck. It's the reverse of I'm not actively walking and hiking for miles and big backpacks of gear. I just drive around and go, oh, look, there's something, and I photograph it, and then I move on.
Yeah.
You have spent a lot of years teaching, and I like the statement you made here, and I'm finding here it is in your notes, and it was rather lengthy. thing, and I enjoyed reading through it. But I'm going to ask you to expand on this from the text you sent me. Everyone is creative, but not everyone has had equal opportunity to explore and express their artistic side. There's debate about whether creativity can be taught, but much agreement that it can be encouraged and nurtured. Can you expand on that for us a little bit?
Sure. So in doing assignments, for example, we'll give a theme, decisive moment, for example. Well, that could be anything which moves. If there's movement, there are these moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you want to be too specific because partly photography is the joy of discovery, searching, and just going out and looking and seeing. Well, I think it was Gary Winogrand, the photographer, who said, "I don't go out with pictures in my head,
Right,
because if I do, I won't see what's there."
right,
So the idea is to give some direction and then let the people, let the students find things.
right.
And maybe they'll discover, you know what? I'm more creative than I thought I was. I heard horror stories of, when you're in elementary school and and some student is doing something different, maybe they're going outside the lines, or
Mm-hmm.
using different color.
Right,
Sometimes the teacher will say, "Well, that's not right. There are no blue cows."
right.
You know,
Why
uh,
not?
yeah, why not? Why
Right,
not? Yeah. So that's kind of what I am trying to get at here. And I'll tell the class, don't try to second guess me as the
right,
teacher. Don't make pictures for me. I have my own psychology.
right,
I'll take my own pictures.
right,
I'm really interested in what you're seeing.
right,
That's what makes it interesting for me, and I think it'll make it interesting for the whole class.
right. I having had the opportunity to speak at Spencer's class and then actually sit through one or two of his class critiques where he puts a projector screen and we critique the image. And I do like the fact it's all very positive critique. It's not a negative critique. It's like, what were you thinking there? It was,
Yeah.
what did you see? What was your thought? And I like that because I don't know if people really understand when you're trying to take an image, it's more than just the snap. It's what did you see and what did you think you were trying to capture? Were you able to capture that?
Yeah.
And if not, why not? And that's a fair question.
Mhm.
Why
Sure,
didn't we
sure.
get to capture? Because we've all done it. Okay,
Sure. Oh,
that's
yeah.
the nice thing about digital is the instant feedback as opposed to getting your film back going lousy, lousy, lousy. There's $8 wasted. But
16 now, but
16 is a 60. See, I don't shoot film anymore. Everybody knows how I feel. I don't shoot film anymore. It's too. But having sat in on these classes, and I like the idea too of that. I don't know if you can always teach it, and I get that, but I like the idea of being encouraged and nurtured. That you can work with an idea, you can work with a student, you can work with a creative mind, and it doesn't have to be a student. It could be somebody in their 50s, 60s, whatever, just starting out on their creative process. They need encouragement. We need to encourage each other. And what I found too by doing this, I found people that went to college to start out and they studied writing or something, and then they found pottery, or they went to do this and they found drawing, and one thing led to another that maybe you think you're a photographer and then you find out you're not, you're a painter.
yeah. Well, we had a student one year who this was her senior year. Major was accounting. She took the photography class, and it was obvious she had a real visual sensitivity, right?
Right.
And sensibility. At the end of that class, she switched her major, but I don't know if she switched her major, but she got herself a job that summer with 2 agencies photographing the presidential campaign.
Wow.
Traveled all across the country photographing the presidential campaign, and then enrolled in the School for Documentary and Photography in New York City for 2 years.
Wow.
Other students have come along. Julia's, I think, still around. She was amazing. Did just amazing stuff, and she was an elementary teacher major.
Okay.
Taught for a couple of years, but started a side business in photography. People fly her now to different countries to take their wedding pictures, even proposal pictures.
Wow.
Just extraordinary. And a lot of students, quite a few students actually have got established businesses on the side, or quite a few for equestrian photography.
Yeah.
because we have this great equestrian
Right.
program here, you know?
Right. And for people that aren't aware, the University of Findlay is one of the leading equestrian programs in the country.
Yeah.
And if I have discovered anything through my photojournalism work and going out and shooting at the farm for different occasions, and people that have horses love their horses and they love pictures of their horses,
yeah.
and they're all about which is great. It no different than people like pictures of their cats or their dogs or whatever it is they're into. And it's interesting because when I do go down to Spencer's class, you can tell who the equestrian students are when you do the photo critique, because there's going to be a horse picture in there somewhere. Yeah, you're going to get, and
We've seen a lot of great horse
a lot of
pictures.
great horse pictures.
Yeah.
So I think, it's interesting. And I like the idea of being around the students and stuff, even my limited engagement with them, because I think it helps keep things fresh, because I think over time we can become a little jaded. I guess I don't want to say we lose our creative drive, but it can become a little routine. That's why I stepped aside from photojournalism all the time and started shooting for myself. Do you find that maybe music gives you that aside, and then you do some music stuff for a while? And I'm not mitigating or diminishing the music aspect of your creativity, but let's say you go out and you're doing gigs for a couple of weeks and you haven't touched a camera. Do you come back renewed?
I think so, actually. And quite a few well-known photographers either play music or have a music collection.
Mhm.
So like W. Eugene Smith, a legendary photojournalist, worked for Life magazine, did Country Doctor thing about a woman in the South who she was a midwife, she was a doctor. People sent in enough money they could actually build a clinic for the women. He was renowned as a photojournalist who he was passionate about his work. Time magazine would send him to Pittsburgh for a couple of weeks. He spent, I think it was 6 months there. He had an enormous record collection, and he would play music as he was in the dark room. And then he would be doing his burning and dodging along with the music.
Along with the music.
And and other musicians or other photographers have been musicians. And I think the two work really well together.
Okay. Because it's interesting, because a lot of times I try to end my podcast with, when you're creating whatever it is in the pottery studio or whatever, what's on your playlist? Well, here you just answered that question for us. Sometimes the musician, it's their own playlist. It's their own songs. Most people seem to have a playlist that music is kind of integral. I can't just sit and edit in silence. I'm terrible at that. I've got to have something going on in the background.
Sure.
And I like that aspect of it. Let's talk about creativity here for a minute. I want to get back to this, and I don't want you to let me forget this. You had a note here, my most unethical photograph, and that's a teaser. We're going to get back to this here in a minute. What happens when you get blocked creatively? Does that happen to you?
I think it's an interesting question in a couple of ways.
Okay.
What are the expectations that you have for yourself? Is your expectation that you'll just constantly be churning out good, decent work or not? And I don't think our brains work that way. I mean, we know just from studying, how our brains work, that there are times when we take in a lot of information, but then we need downtime, in a sense, for our brain to try to filter through that, synthesize things, think about it. So how many times have you been on a walk, been in the shower, wake up from a dream, you're taking, you're not doing quote unquote anything, and voila.
Right.
The idea comes, right? Idea comes you didn't have before. It's like, okay, that might work.
Right.
So I just don't worry about stuff like that.
Okay.
I figure if I'm not shooting for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, my brain's still working. It's taking in stuff, and I just don't let it bother me.
I like that. And I think, and because I've heard various things, and you've heard some people say, we're working every day, and produce. I understand it, and I like what you said, and I wonder if some of that too comes with being of a vintage that we are. Does that come with age? Does it come with experience a little bit that and I think I attribute it to, we have an understanding like that. I haven't lost it. It's just, I understand my own creative process now better than I did maybe when I was in my 20s or my 30s. And Because I know when you're young, you have a lot of passion.
Yeah.
You're full of passion, and as we age, for lack of a better term, some of that passion gets tempered a little bit. You realize you're like, yeah, okay, it's not such a big deal. And I think it's something not to be afraid of. And I like what you said. I just don't worry about it. I'm kind of the same way.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
go a couple weeks. I won't shoot anything. Not talking about sports, that'll come with assignments.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'll just be like, yeah, okay, let's pick it up and let's go for a couple weeks. I don't worry about it. I like that.
Yeah. And sometimes circumstances, then, of course.
Sure.
So this last week, there was a big fish kill on the Maumee River around Napoleon.
Okay.
So my wife and I, we've discovered a little park there, and sometimes we just go there, take my guitar, sit on the swing, play
Hmm.
music. Well, this time I met this guy. Says, yeah, there's a big fish kill out there. He got the glasses. Well, there was an overflow of a of a retaining dam and released some, I guess, ammonia or something. And so there's all these fish in the river. So the next day I thought, okay, I'll come back and photograph.
Right.
See if there's anything there.
Everything left.
Right?
Right.
You don't know, but that's part of the fun of it. The discovery. It's
Right.
like, maybe there's going to be a photo there, maybe there isn't,
Right.
So I took some photos. Maybe I can use some for something. I don't know. We'll see.
Right. So tell us your most unethical photograph. And in parentheses, you say there's a little story here. So let's share. I'm
Okay,
interested
okay.
in your unethical photograph.
Yeah, yeah. Photography deals with ethics just like everything else,
Mhm.
right? So I'm on assignment, interviews for a TV station in Western Pennsylvania. This was when I was freelancing, filming interviews. And Sunday morning, we're out there early and we're driving through the hills of Western Pennsylvania. Beautiful, weeping willows, foggy, real fog, not like today.
Right. Yeah.
And I start to see the Amish come out in their buggies because there's a lot of Amish there, right? And I'm driving, and I've got two other friends there in the van, and I know they don't like to be photographed. I know that very well.
Right.
I mean, I go to a Mennonite church in Toledo, as well as more recently a Methodist church in Bowling Green. So I totally know they don't want to be photographed. So I start to try to surreptitiously photograph them out the window. All of a sudden, driving down the road, I look over to the right and I see, I'll show you, I see this.
Right.
And it was just like I was on autopilot. I just pulled over, parked, got out of the van. I had a camera with a 135 millimeter lens on it, film camera. Walked over safely, safe distance, made about 6 photographs, and this Amish man started to come my way. And maybe I should get back in the van.
Right. Right.
So I walked back in the van, got in. He came up to the I rolled the window down, tried to explain to him, hey, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but I said, we're artists here. We just really appreciate this beauty. We don't think you're weird or
Right.
anything.
Right.
Well, I mean, this was the closest I'd ever come to see an Amish person hit somebody.
Wow.
Totally wanted to hit. Now, a lot of people will see this and they'll think, he needs a ride?
Right.
No, I was like,
Right.
yeah. So I didn't remember taking this picture.
Okay.
When I developed the film, it wasn't an easy picture to print, but I printed it and I thought, whoa, if I do say so, look at that.
Mm-hmm.
So I showed it to my friends. They thought that was, whoa, wow. So I thought I'll put it in the show.
Right.
So this was at Indianapolis at the big convention center. We put up stuff and I had it on the floor. Somebody came by, looked at it, kicked it over. Just
Really?
kicked it up. I put it in another show and somebody reacted very negatively because they knew that the Amish did not want to be
Right.
photographed.
Right.
So you know what? I'm not going to show this. I'm only going to show it to friends I think, might
Right.
appreciate it for the right reason. I even went to a couple of photographers who came through Detroit. I can't remember this photographer's name. He was an African-American photographer, well known for his humanitarian photography. He was in Detroit. I thought, I'm taking this up. I'm just going to take my licks for this guy,
Right.
He looks at it. That's a pretty extraordinary photograph. I showed it to a former Amish author who's now in the Mennonite church, written many books about the Amish. Figured the same thing. I'll take my licks. He looks at it. That's an extraordinary photograph.
Yes.
So I'm not gonna show it.
Right.
So along comes Robert Mapplethorpe.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know who Robert Mapplethorpe is, you can look him up. He's very controversial, but incredible photographer in the 90s, passed away from AIDS. in the 90s. He had a show at the Contemporary Museum in Cincinnati. I was teaching photography at the time at the Art Museum, and I've taught at a number of different schools in the area. I got to go see that, So I went
Hmm.
down there on a Saturday. Was there the whole day. Saw everything there. The movie. What the coverage never told you was that there was this one group of rows of like 3 different rows of photographs, and they were under glass. They were 8x10s
Hmm.
under huge. But before you could look at these photographs, you had to read essays written by different people. And Patti Smith, who was Robert Mapplethorpe's, close friend, they lived
Hmm.
together for a while. She wrote the first one. It starts out quoting the Apostle Paul about the resurrection of Jesus and the resurrection, right?
Okay.
Quotes him, and then she says, "But in today's world, these photographs are the closest thing we have to this." That's interesting.
Hmm.
You could have a real interesting conversation about this with them. They really wanted people to think. So the top row was flowers, some
Hmm.
of them very, sort of erotic in a sense, if you can make a flower. S&M photographs. And then bottom row was black males, a little bit of frontal nudity there, stuff. But every one of them had these essays, really super thoughtful essays. So I saw that. I'm heading back home, driving up 75, and all of a sudden I thought, all of those photographs, I've taken a photograph more unethical than any of those I've seen, because all of those people were absolutely willing and happy to be
Right.
photographed.
Right.
I did it knowingly against a person's will and made him very upset.
Right.
So I thought, And at the time, I was doing large black and white photographs with text, with stories. So I came up with this saying. I said, to Robert Mapplethorpe, somewhere between Dayton and Piqua, Ohio, I've taken a photograph more unethical than any of these I've seen of yours today. Sincerely, Spencer Cunningham. And I put that text below this picture. And I entered it in I thought, okay, I'll with that text, I'm going to re-enter it in a show. So I entered it in the area artist show at the Toledo Museum of Art. And they had that every year there at that time. Terrific show by great artists in the area. Got accepted, might have got an award from the photo club. I can't remember, but I kind of went with a little trepidation because I didn't know what was going to happen. So I go there, nothing happens. I'm on my way out. And down at Grove Place, if you're familiar with the art museum, all of a sudden I hear, "Are you Spencer Cunningham?" behind me. Should I confess that or not?
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Did you take that Amish picture? Too late to deny it at this point. Yeah. I took that. He put his hand on my shoulder. He said, "I have to thank you for that photograph. That was the whole show for me. Thank you so very, very much." That's just exactly the way it happened.
I'm going to let everybody think about that for a second. And I understand ethics and I fully understand the background of this because anybody who's done photojournalism work, you've encountered this where I've been yelled at, I've been spit at, I've been called all kinds of names for photographing people at their worst, the worst moments of humanity. Yeah. It's news.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the essay. And I want to lead into this. Do you think, given the instantaneous, how do I want to say this? The feedback now with Instagram, the fact that it's just continual scroll, look, that we've lost this ability to take a photograph like that, contemplate it, study it, read the essay behind it. Is that gone from society now, or do we have to work even harder to put that out there? Because, Instagram is, to me, and our digital society is, I look at it, what's next? I look at it, what's next? I look at it, and you and I grew up in an age, and we talk about this in your class. I brought this up of very iconic photographs that from the Vietnam War, from World War II, from the Depression, photographs that everybody's seen. And today we're inundated with images. You think we've lost something there?
It was interesting. This maybe 5-6 months ago. It was during the spring semester, last spring semester. I'm reading an online thing by 2 very respected photographers, the North photographers, a husband and wife. And the headline was, "2026 photography has changed forever." Well, that sounds interesting. That's a pretty bold claim.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what he's getting at. His main thesis was that AI has changed things, but he said young people, they're not all that enamored with AI imagery. They don't particularly like it.
Okay.
So that's interesting. Let me check this out, right?
Right.
So I was teaching 3 classes, the film class and advanced digital class. There's 3 people in that one, and then I actually asked the music class. Yeah, they just look kind of fakey. They just don't look real. We're just not that interested in 'em. I thought, well, that's interesting.
That's encouraging.
That's encouraging.
Yes.
Very encouraging. That said, we are in the age where we're not anymore real sure what is an actual captured image and what isn't. I mean, the camera lies. It's always been able to lie,
Sure.
right? Because it selects something out of a broader reality.
Right.
And we all know that, kind of, we accept that.
Right.
It doesn't mean it can't tell you the truth about something
Right.
which it captures, but there may be other things out there that might change your viewpoint a little bit. Who knows, right?
Right.
But now, I mean, look at the reels that come across.
Mhm.
The first time I sort of really caught on to this was, some animal comes out from, and these people are right there doing something. I thought, that's interesting. Now, how is it that a person with a high quality camera just happened to be there
Right.
at
Right.
at that moment,
Right.
right? So you got to, if you think about it from the photographer's or the filmmaker's point of view, there's all these things that are just created now.
Right.
Amazing stuff. So maybe that's one reason that there's a renewed interest in film photography. We believe in it. At Findlay, this last year, we had a collection of these film cameras,
Mhm.
all kinds of different film cameras. Some loaded automatically, some did. Some rewound. It was a nightmare to try to teach this, as you can imagine.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
The different ways you read these.
Yeah. There's 4 different ways to load a camera, and
Yeah,
depends on which one you have.
Right. We got through it, but so this last year we actually bought 16 Pentax Spotmatics from Midwest Photo. Lo and behold, I had no idea. They had 40 of these.
Right.
And we bought 16 and they look like they're brand new. I
Right.
mean, they're just, so that's going to make it a lot easier for one thing.
And that's interesting because I like the idea that everybody's on a level playing field.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to give you this film body. It's got a nifty 50 on the front of it. And here's your Tri-X 400.
Yeah.
Everybody's got the same
thing.
So you can't attribute, and folks, we all know too, though, that the gear doesn't necessarily make you a better photographer. It doesn't necessarily provide you a better image. I've seen remarkable images from a smartphone.
Oh yeah.
And I've seen people with a $5,000 DSLR in their hands that couldn't take a picture of this wall behind it.
Yeah.
So, but this idea that everybody's on a level playing field, well, let's take that out of the equation. Free your mind up from that. Don't worry about it. Nobody's got anything better, and go.
Yeah.
And let's take the gear out of the hands.
Right.
And anybody, I've got a secondary YouTube channel that I might as well produce now, it's called Free Range Photographer, and it's not a podcast. It's just me. I get out there and I rant about all the things in photography that are bothering me today. And that's one of them is being a gearhead. And that's a totally different conversation. But I like the idea of this. I'm looking forward to seeing the work that they can produce. And anybody's been these cameras got to be how old?
Well, let's see. They were around the 60s.
60, yeah.
They were like the camera to have at one point.
Yeah. And I don't think people realize that too. You get a little nostalgic. I remember, you had a Minolta, was a big thing. The Pentax.
SRT-102s. Those were the coolest.
See? Yeah. I've got a Nikon ZF that looks like my old Nikon FM2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The retro thing.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm still not doing film. I like that. One of the things here too. So, we talked about the unethical photograph, and thank you for sharing that. That's a very personal, moving experience, and still with you.
I'm still very careful about how I show it.
Yes, I don't blame you. We've talked about what is it, AI, and let's breach this for a minute. And this could be we could spend an hour on AI. What is a photograph? And I've had this conversation with countless people is, when does a photograph stop becoming a photograph and start becoming just digital art? What's your take on that? When does a digital photograph, stop becoming a photograph and just become a piece of digital art?
So you would know that, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, there's this big debate about is photography an art?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's made with a machine.
Right.
and it just captures what's there.
Right.
So
We don't create anything.
you don't
We
create
just
anything.
capture what's out there. Yep.
Means selection, obviously, but that to me that's kind of an irrelevant question.
Right.
Is a photograph art or not? It is what it is.
Right.
And a photograph has this unique connection between what's there and what shows up in a medium.
Mm-hmm.
And the medium can tell you a lot about the reality, but it isn't the same thing. So one of the big questions I think for art photography is what responsibility does my art photograph have to reality, to documentary in a sense? When I was freelancing out of Toledo in public relations photography, I knew all the Blade photographers,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd go to the same events. I'd be
Mm-hmm.
sent there. I mean, the school system was one of my clients. The symphony was one of my clients. The art museum, as well as businesses, hospitals. So I would see these guys all the time,
Right.
and we got to be friends. And so there was one photographer, and I'm not going to name him, but when the Bluffton College baseball team had that accident, that terrible
Mm-hmm.
accident.
I was there.
Were you?
Not for the accident, but I know where you're going.
Okay.
So go ahead.
You know this
Yeah.
firsthand.
Yeah.
The first time they got back together,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Why don't you tell me? You tell it, because I've never heard it from anybody who's been there.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I was actually part of the press that day.
Yeah.
They had it was the first baseball game in Bluffton that they were going to play after this tragic bus accident.
Bus
There
accident.
was a bus accident.
Couple of more.
Several players were killed. Yes. It was a tragedy. They were in Atlanta, and there was an issue with the exit, and it was a terrible thing.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar with Bluffton, it's a very small community. Bluffton University is a very tight knit community. It's a small school, and so of course, for the first baseball game, it's a very emotional moment for everyone. And they wanted to honor the players, so they had banners out on the outfield fences, and the banners did not extend all the way to the ground. Okay, and folks, Bluffton, it's a small place. We're not talking Fifth Third Field, right? So there's probably, there was probably 5 or 6 press photographers there because this is an event, and photographs were made of the people standing out there. They did a moment of silence.
Circle.
The team, there's a circle and stuff. One photograph got published in the Blade, and legs were missing from underneath.
How did they know that?
Because other photographs were published that showed the legs
Beneath
the banners. My photograph was one of them in the Courier. Because and anybody that's done any kind of photojournalism work knows, Spencer and I, we could be standing side by side. We're probably going to get very similar photographs, especially something like that.
Sure.
They're almost going to be identical. You probably throw 5 of them down, you wouldn't be able to say, well, I think that's mine. Right. And a paper out of Dayton, I think one of the photographers out of Dayton saw this and said, wait a minute, this is because it made the Associated Press. And whenever anything hits the Associated Press, it gets published everywhere. Come to find out, the person had photoshopped out the legs because it was a better aesthetic for the photo. Problem is, it was a news event. It wasn't real. Okay. It wasn't the reality of the situation. This then led to an investigation of other photographs. Come to find out that this was not the first time this had happened, that other photographs, award-winning photographs, had been photoshopped. And the individual ended up losing their job and for lack of a better term, any kind of credibility in the photojournalism community after that. So, yes, it's the reality.
That's
but
the story.
I was part of
that
press gaggle that was there. Yeah, I was shooting for the Courier.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, somebody might ask, and I tell this in class, and I show them the pictures. Well, what's the big deal? I mean, it's just a couple of legs there, right?
Right.
So here's what I would say. I want to hear what you might say. What I would say was, suppose this was not a baseball. Suppose this was maybe a political organization or something.
Right.
Somebody threw a bomb in there or something.
Right.
And then they go back to look at other photographs of this.
Right.
That's why it matters.
We are documentaries. We are documenting a moment in time. You can't change that moment in time. No matter how hard you try, no matter how hard people today want to change the narrative by using AI or manipulating sound bites. And we see it all the time. You see it in political ads. They're great at manipulating things. An ethical photograph, in especially the photojournalistic world, this is what happened. Whether you like it or not, whether it's not aesthetically pleasing or not. And the impactful ones aren't going to be aesthetically pleasing. They're going to be unnerving. Or in this case, and it was it really worth it? And that's the other question you ask yourself. You lost an entire career, and then it was discovered it wasn't the first time.
Put a basketball.
Yeah.
Girls, University of Toledo girls basketball.
Yeah.
Literally put the basketball there.
Yeah. And without the basketball, it's not even a photo you would run through your edits. I'm a sports photographer. Folks, you don't know how many images I've had where I went, oh man, if the ball was just there, or if they were just there, but you know what? They're not.
Yeah.
And you have a responsibility to the craft. You have a responsibility to the field of photojournalism, and you have a responsibility to yourself to be ethical. And Photoshop, folks, it has a place. Okay. I agree. I see people do brilliant things with Photoshop.
Sure.
I like it when it's identified.
Yeah.
That's my catch. If there's anything that this image has been altered via Photoshop.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't like it, but if it's been altered via AI, I don't like, I'm not a big fan of AI.
Yeah.
For a multitude of reasons, but photojournalism, ethics, it's pure.
Yeah.
It's pure. And you know, your picture there of even the Amish gentleman, that's pure. That's nothing changed. That's pure.
I didn't put the manure in the road there.
No. And you didn't take it out.
Yeah, I didn't take it out.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
That's you know, that conversation. Yeah. There's this picture of something happening, and then there's 3 empty beer bottles and a discarded pack of Marlboro here. That was part of what was there. Would it make the picture look better if we just, you know? Now, the argument, folks, and I know somebody out there is going, wait, we crop photos all the time. You're right. We can crop.
Sure.
And that's an accepted practice. So, yeah, that's the story. And anybody who's familiar with the photojournalism world probably knows very well the story we're referring to.
When I was freelancing, digital was coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So I was interested in at what point will digital be more practical than film?
Right.
So for 2 years, I went up to Lansing, Michigan, the community college, for a hybrid imaging thing. And they showed us Photoshop.
Right.
A picture of New York City, and they put Godzilla in New York City.
Sure.
We're all like, whoa, wow, that's amazing. But there were all kinds of conferences and symposiums and meetings. What are we going to allow? The journalists were holding these, newspapers, magazines. What are we going to allow? And they all basically said, we're only going to allow what normally we've allowed for film photography. You can burn, you can darken certain things to emphasize a part or dodge something. And of course, there's also a parallel to this, I think.
Okay.
In Jon Stewart, when Jon Stewart had The Daily Show,
mm-hmm.
in an interview, he was asked by somebody why The Daily Show went to so great lengths to make sure that the information they put out was true. And I don't think anybody would guess this answer. But I think it parallels the same thing in terms of documentary photography.
Okay.
His answer was, because if the information isn't true, the jokes just aren't that funny.
Okay.
I was like, wow, you know?
Right.
So I got here. Okay. I don't know if you can read this.
Please do not eat ice cream here.
Yeah. So this is New York City. We were on an art department trip in New York City. We're roaming around, at night. And there's this church with a sign here. A little bit of visual humor, right?
Sure.
And I think it makes a difference to know that the sign was there, I took a picture of it rather than I put that sign.
Right.
I think that makes a lot of difference.
Well, it does, because now I want to know the story behind the sign.
Yeah.
It's there for a reason. I didn't put it there.
But you still get the interaction here,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know, is this Jesus? I'm not sure.
I don't know, but I know
Jesus doesn't want you to eat ice cream here.
Right. And here there's another sign. Please do not eat or drink on the Huron steps.
Yeah.
So apparently this is a problem in New York. But no, the sign does. It adds a context to it, because otherwise that's just a picture of a piece of religious iconography, right? It's a statue. Okay, nice. I like the picture, but I want to know why we can't eat ice cream there. While he's searching through here, folks, I want to let you know that there's going to be different web links and all of Spencer's information is going to be in the show notes. So please make sure you check out the show notes. And there's some web links to more of Spencer's work. He's written a couple of books. He's got a lot going on. So this is fun. Let's see, what do we got here next?
So here we go. Again, I'll try to make it so you can read it, see it.
Okay, I got mannequins.
Bunch of mannequins in
a window. Various traits of dress and mostly undressed.
Just undressed.
Okay. I can't read the sign,
yeah,
no.
And the sign says, when bell rings, call 911.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, this was just Portland, Oregon. I was walking down the street.
Okay. And I've been to Portland many times.
Yeah. It's one of the ways that I try to encourage the students to always have a camera.
Right.
Of course, with cell phones now we do.
Yeah, it's much easier.
But even then, well, you got to hope somebody called 911.
Why? And what makes what bell? What makes the bell ring?
What makes the bell ring?
Right. It does.
Yeah, way better than if I'd have put that in there.
Right. Because there's thought to something there.
So there is still this sense of reality.
Right.
And we don't ever want to lose that.
No, we lose the reality. I think we lose ourselves. Okay. I think we have covered a lot of the work. The Mapplethorpe thing was really interesting. The Amish photo, if anybody takes anything out of this, folks, I really, again, that was very striking. I liked it because when I saw it in here, I'm like, Spencer took an unethical photograph. I want to know what that means. Is there anything
I should have I didn't bring this.
Okay.
Shoot. I didn't think about it. Several years after this, I'm over at the Children's Zoo in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And with our kids and our friends and their kids, right? And this happens occasionally. I get separated from the group because I'm taking pictures. And I come around this corner. Here are these Amish people, leg up on a wooden fence, watching the penguins.
Okay.
They got the Amish dress on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a sign with penguins there. And I see these penguins coming this way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, my heart just started racing. There's a photograph there.
Right.
But I had decided, I promised myself, I'm never going to embarrass another Amish person.
Right.
I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And I think people have a right not to be photographed, whoever they are.
Right.
I just do. Man, I had my Leica camera, fairly quiet.
Right.
And I said, okay, just gonna walk over here and get it ready. I'm waiting for those penguins to get right where I want them. And if they don't turn around, I'm making this photograph. And if they do, I'm not going to. They didn't turn around. I've got the funniest photograph.
Right.
Kind of making fun of them, but not.
No.
It depends on how you take it.
Right.
But it's just kind of a really fun photograph.
Well, and you lend itself, and I could bring you back and we could spend an hour on just street photography, because that's what you're talking about, really, is the ethics of street photography. And if you're in a public space, do you have a right to not be photographed? And there's a whole, folks, there's hours and hours and hours of controversy and writing and everything that surrounds street photography. And I'm not going to tell you what's right or wrong either. It's not for me. I had questions during my photojournalistic career, especially on the news side, even where I asked myself, should I be taking this? And I reached a point where I couldn't do it anymore. I just, I couldn't do it. I'm done with this. Sports is one thing. You're there. It's a performance. You're in an arena. It's expected. There's a controlled outcome, but the car wrecks and the fires and the all the things you run into, I just had enough. Now, I want people to understand there's a positive side to this too. There's a community out there. You get to meet great people. You get behind the scenes access.
Yep.
You get to talk to people. Yeah, you get to go places people don't normally get to go.
The camera does that.
The camera gets you access, right? Mm-hmm. And I've met remarkable people, but it's a balance, and everybody makes their own decision. Spencer, is there anything, if there are one or two sentences or something that you want to let everybody know about their creative journey? What would you tell, what's the advice you give people, maybe let's say embarking on their creative journey, regardless of their stage in life?
I just heard two really good quotes. One actually was from Picasso. I just read this. Actually, I think it was last night. Reading this book, Mona. It's a real interesting book about a young girl who loses her sight, but then gets it back.
Okay.
Supposed to be going to a psychiatrist, but her grandfather instead takes her to the Louvre, and then D'Orsay, the other. Anyway, he explained. They take one piece of work every time, and he explains it to them. And it's written by an art historian, so this guy knows his stuff. And he quotes Picasso as saying, something about the greatest act of art is loving people. Wow, that's
Okay.
interesting. The other quote is by, I think, Burke Uzzell. He was a photojournalist. Photography is a lifelong love of life, something like that. And maybe just to say, if you get interested in visual things, it could be painting, could be drawing, could be photography gives us so much opportunity to do this. You will live a happier, richer life because you will see more, because we take in far more information with our eyes than we do any other of our senses. And if you're sighted, if you're fortunate enough to have sight, you will just start to see things that you would have missed otherwise. And I discovered this a long time ago on a trip out west. We saw a deer in Wyoming evening, and I was with my brother-in-law, sister, and wife. And, well, let's just see how many deer we can count. See before the sun goes down.
Mm-hmm.
We saw 9 deer. I saw every one of those first, because I was at that point really starting to be interested in photography.
Okay.
And I thought photography is doing things for me.
Right.
It's making me more aware. You too. I'm sure you've had this.
I like this because when you were talking about being out west in that, and I do try to be a very active listener, but things do pop into my head with this. You know, it's very similar to, especially when you and I were growing up, and anybody of our age, the family vacation in the station wagon before iPods, before Kindles, before anything. Remember road sign bingo, right? You had the bingo cards that had road signs on them, right? So you had to look out the window, right? You had to look out the window. And I always joke because my parents' station wagon, the rear seat, you sat backwards and you looked out. And I always told everybody joking, I said, I had no idea where we were going, but I know where we've been, because all I could see was out the back. But we looked for road signs, or the license plate game, right? How many license plates can you find?
Make of car.
So all that though, and I don't know if we realized it or not maybe, but we are being taught to see.
Oh yeah.
We were being taught to observe.
Yeah.
And I struggle with this sometimes. I think I'm crazy sometimes. And I'm driving down the road and everything I look at sometimes looks like a photograph. I see things and I'm just like, that's a photograph. That's a photograph. And I think, okay, I'm going insane, and that's fine. I'm happy with it. All right, folks, we've come up on here a little over an hour. This has been a very engaging conversation. Thank you, Spencer, very much for taking the time to be on the show and share with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah. And
pleasure.
We might come back and do more.
Yeah.
We've got topics and there's a lot to say, folks. So everybody out there, you know what to do. If you like this, subscribe, tell your friends, and I hope you get something out of this, because I know I do, and I hope my guests take something away from this as well. So that's the end of today. It's Creative Frequency. It's Kent Tarbach signing off. Join us again in a couple weeks when we bring another guest into the studio. Maybe we do it remote. Either way, go out, make, create. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to the Creative Frequency. You know what to do. Like, follow, and subscribe. Then join us again for the next episode of The Creative Frequency.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.